Well, welcome to the Lately in PHP podcast. I am Manuel, Lemos, the regular host of the podcast. Unfortunately, Hernani Jopert, my regular host, could not come, but on the upside, I have here with me as my guest Arturs Sosins from Latvia. Hello, Arturs. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm fine, thank you.
Actually, I invited Arturs not just to fill the space of Hernani, but also to comment on something interesting related with both JS classes site and site. And Arturs has been a great contributor since quite a long time, and we are going to comment more on that more at the end of this podcast, because it's related with the JavaScript Innovation Award that is just getting started. But first, we are going to start with our regular review of topics that we comment on related with the PHP world. And first, I would like to start with just comment briefly on the latest releases of PHP, namely PHP 5.4.3. Actually, since the last podcast, we did not comment on 5.4.2 because it was also released recently, and basically there was also PHP 5.4.3 release that aims to, in part, to the same goals, which is basically to fix some bugs, security bugs that affect PHP when we're running on CGI mode, if I can put it that way. I don't know if this affects many people. Personally, I do not use PHP on CGI mode. I don't recall if I ever used it. Maybe in the early days, PHP 2 or 3, but since PHP mode PHP for Apache was made available, it is preferable, it's faster, and so I do not use the Arturs, do you have any environment on which you use PHP on CGI mode?
I haven't used it myself. I can't really remember. There was one situation where only CGI-based setup could be used because of some kind of restrictions. But well, I haven't worked with it myself, so I guess it's pretty rare when someone uses a CGI-based installation, because most hostings offer PHP standard PHP setup.
Well, anyway, this is only be worth noting that if you use PHP on CGI mode, because if you use PHP as Apache module or fast CGI, this vulnerability that was found does not affect you. Other than that, there was also a vulnerability that fixes buffer overflow when using the call Apache request headers, but this only affects PHP 5.4 series, not PHP 5.3. So, well, it's always good to know when there are important fixes. This probably does not affect many people, but it's just keep in mind what is being fixed, so you figure if you should upgrade or not to avoid being exploited. And on this matter, I think there is not much more to say. And moving on to the next topic that we planned for this podcast, I'd like also just a brief comment on an initiative that PHP developer had to let's say elaborate a diagram of the PHP releases over time, and starting from PHP 1 in 1995, and then going all over all those releases, being minor or major releases. And for those that are curious how PHP evolved in terms of releases over time, this may be an interesting curiosity, and I'll post the URL in the show notes in case it is not easy to see what I'm sharing on screen. And maybe in the future people want to check it out with more attention. And anyway, moving on to another topic which is not really related with PHP, but may somehow be, because the latest events on the way PHP is being used, at least offered to the community so the people can contribute and submit eventually patches, is somehow related with GitHub. It happens that Linus Torvalds, the creator of the Git version control system, posted a sort of rant, or at least a complaint, that regards some limitations of GitHub, or the way they implement the so-called pull requests. For those that are not familiar, pull requests are sort of feature submission or code submission process by which the maintainers of the main repository can receive patches that implement improvements to a project. And Linus Torvalds was complaining with the GitHub people about the way the GitHub pull requests are arriving to the Linux project. Namely, he was complaining about the formats of the comments. For some reason, they are not coming well formatted as he expected, and makes it hard to read what is being patched, what is being affected. That was one complaint. Another complaint is about the email addresses of the pull request submitters that are not validated. For those that use GitHub, may not be well aware, but GitHub, when you register, and it does not verify your email address, so it somehow allows people to create fake accounts and start pushing patches, pull requests to projects, although this does not affect the projects if the pull requests are not accepted. It may be annoying, and this is one of the complaints that Linus Torvalds had, and there is a long thread here of discussion in the GitHub about his complaints. Basically, he's saying that he complained already before to the GitHub people, but somehow they are not following his complaints, or are that do not seem to be reacting. And the reason why this somehow has to do with the PHP development is that nowadays the PHP project is also accepting pull requests via GitHub. And I wonder, well, so far I did not see anybody from the PHP core complaining, but I wonder if this will not also affect the process. Well, it will not affect the PHP development per se, but somehow I was wondering if sooner or later people from the PHP core will not complain. Arturs, do you use GitHub or in your developments or for some project?
Well, actually, I'm a user of another versioning system, and as I understood, then Torvalds would call me an ugly for using that. But yeah, I've tried using Git. It seemed more complex than the versioning system I was using, and as I understood from this topic, then the web interface that GitHub provides for Git is actually pretty useless for many of the Git options that you could possibly do. So I don't know.
Well, actually, it's true that Git is more complex because it's probably more powerful. Well, namely this feature of pull requests makes it easier to integrate changes done by others. They can take their own copy of the repositories, make their changes, and then submit pull requests, and that's why some people are enjoying more GitHub than any other version control systems. And anyway, so far I have not seen anybody from PHP core complaining. Maybe those complaints come sooner or later, or not. And as a side note, I would like also to comment that since some time ago, the PHP classes site, also JS classes site, is allowing people to register or log in with using accounts of other sites such as Facebook or Google, Gmail, or Microsoft Live or Hotmail accounts, and this somehow made it easier for people to log in. And I also have considered allowing people with GitHub accounts to log in or register because it also uses OAuth 2. And what happened is that since I realized that people are able to create accounts on GitHub with that do not have their email addresses verified, I mean they can easily create fake accounts. I decided to not enable the support for people to log in with GitHub accounts because it would open a door for people to easily spam the site creating many accounts, and it would probably allow certain unfair situations to happen, like people creating accounts to vote on themselves. Although that is not impossible nowadays, it's allowing to use fake accounts. It would be would make it easier to happen, and it's not a good idea. Anyway, moving on to the next topic, I would like also to comment now something that it has been going on for a while, that is related with an attempt with a group to define some standards for PHP development. From what I can remember, this all started in 2009, if I'm not mistaken. And the idea is to define some common standards for PHP projects to adopt. And they started with an initial proposal, which would be basically to define some rules for class naming and namespace qualifiers, and so define a common autoloader for PHP 5 applications. So using the same naming conventions, and that was just the initial attempt to define some standard specifications, because PHP there has no history of defining standards for the PHP programming itself that are widely adopted. There have been attempts in the past, like projects like Pair, that define their coding styles, but a lot of people did not follow Pair for many reasons, either for not agreeing or did not know the project. This effort now, actually since 3 years now, they are trying to define more formally adopted standards that people may follow or not. And now they are actually defining more standards, more specifications that define other things besides the initial proposal, which just cover class naming. And they have now defined more proposals that tend to require that projects that embrace these proposals be more strict in terms of formatting their code. There is basically what they call PSR1 that defines a few more standards, and then there is PSR2 that is more demanding in terms of code formatting. And the way you write your PHP code in a way that is more uniform between projects. There are many projects that are involved here, well, these are just people that represent those projects, and despite this is not a small number of projects, I just wonder if this is going to have any adoption, since now we are already in 2011, and a lot of time has passed since the beginning. Arturs, do you use? Did you read any these specifications? What do you think about them? Are you willing to adopt them, or you just do not care?
Well, I do care. If you ask me, does PHP world need such standards, then I definitely say yes. I've never tried Ruby, but even without trying it, I've heard there are similar coding standards, and that each Ruby developer may come to another developer application and quite easily navigate through the code and try to understand what he's doing. Then, well, something like this is needed for a PHP world. For some time, I thought that frameworks would solve this problem. You know, if the project is built upon, let's say, CodeIgniter, then other CodeIgniter developers which understand this framework could also easily manage this project and that really helps to understand others developers code, because, well, I guess it's the most common problem, and also why these standards should be defined. For example, in the same PHP classes site, you share your code, you want others to easily understand it, use it, modify it. So yes, I say yes to standards, but will they be applied by most developers? I probably need to say that I guess not, because even now I've encountered the projects where older PHP developers does not even use OOP practices. You know, they're like coding in a fourth version of PHP where without using the object-oriented approach. So even if this object-oriented approach is not common, well, maybe it's a rare situation, but not all developers use them, then try to make them apply new coding practices would be too difficult to accomplish.
Yeah, there is a lot of say about standards, because one thing is having standards for formatting your code, and it is good to have standards in the sense that if you use the same standard consistently, your code will be more readable. But there are many ways to format your code and it still be readable, and getting people to agree, it's very hard. Actually, this project, this group that was formed from developers of different frameworks and CMS projects, they did not all have the same standard. They are trying to agree on a single standard. There are variants, which means their codes would be formatted in slightly different ways, but they will still be readable, I suppose. And I think that is the most important matter. And now, if you want to push a more demanding standard that includes things like tabs and spaces, line breaks and braces, where do you put them? I think that there will be no big consensus about on this, because
Exactly.
PHP developers nowadays have been developing PHP since many years, and if they adopted one standard probably defined by themselves, it's hard to change habits. And if they do not see the motivation for changing habits, they will not do it. And there is this principle about motivation, making change, motivating people to change habits, which consists in three conditions. One is to people have motivation, and other to have the ability to change the habits, and the third would be to have the information that would be important to do it. There are some motivations to do it, but some people do not have the ability to go through all their code bases and change from one style to another, because it takes a lot of time to reformat their code. I see there is an attempt to produce some tools that will allow developers to reformat their code. I don't know if they are reliable. They will not break stuff on the code that people have written so far. So I don't know if that will be a solution, but at least we'll tackle the problem of the lack of time to to change those standards. And thirdly, people having the information that it will be important to change their coding styles. Well, at least here we're sort of helping on that by talking about this this problem. Maybe people look, now that they have this information, there is this standardization effort, they will try to learn about it and try to follow those standards. But between knowing about it and following this initiative, I think it's not that easy, and people may or may not adopt these standards, and especially the PSR2, because it is really demanding. I think things like tabs versus spaces are needless, because
completely agree.
It doesn't matter, and you will never get a general agreement on something that is very old. It's as old like the VI versus Emacs editors, which is several decades dispute which one is better. And tabs versus spaces, it's like having people to agree on that. It's like an impossible mission. And but still, they are proposing it on PSR2. I think PSR1 defines some conventions that are more acceptable.
Yes.
They are more reasonable. It would be more feasible to adopt them, but PSR2, when it starts imposing on tabs versus spaces and camel case or Studley case, that seems like somebody trying to push their personal preferences. And since PHP on several things is case insensitive, trying to push the case standards for names, well, I don't know. I don't think that probably will get great acceptance. I don't know. What do you think, Arturs, on that?
Yeah, well, I completely agree with that. Some standards are too demanding, and well, I would prefer tabs, not for spaces, because well, it's what's simple, it's easy to navigate, and newer text editors support multiple tabbing. But yes, some of the suggestions could be accepted. For example, positioning of properties and methods and visibilities in class, that if every developer would follow one convention, it would be much easier to just read through the class to understand what it does and how you can modify it. So some of them are useful, but not all.
Yeah. Well, I think the most important matter is things that make people change their long-time habits, and trying to push some of these conventions here, which they are just conventions. They are some people already have their own conventions, and they are not wrong because they have it. They have been using them consistently for many years. So trying to push some of these conventions is like asking people, now you are writing with your left hand, now you should write with the right hand because the majority is using it. And it's also not true that the majority will use these conventions, because they are defined by a small group of people. Even if many people agree on them, the PHP community is very large. It's just there are no standards since the beginning. My opinion is that this probably will not go very far, but Okay, this is just my opinion. I'm just one person, and I'm not trying to influence anybody. I'm just giving my expectation of whether this will work or not in the future. And well, we'll see. Now, moving on to another topic of this podcast. It's time to first comment on the latest classes, objects.
I'm sorry, didn't we skip one?
No, I'm just introducing that because I'm going to talk also about the JavaScript Innovation Award.
Okay.
That it's all related, and on that, I'd like to, before we comment on the actual classes, objects that were published in the JS classes site, there is this article on which I announced the upcoming JavaScript Programming Innovation Award, which is basically to the idea is to do the same as it was done in the PHP classes site since 2004, which was the PHP Programming Innovation Award. Very briefly, we comment on all the nominees every month. That people that sent innovative components, but just for those that are not familiar with this initiative, basically it consists in nominating all the innovative packages that have been published in the previous month, and then since that month there is a vote. People vote on the most innovative package of the month, and after that month there is the results are announced, and the developers are entitled to earn prizes provided by sponsors. And that has been going on since 2004 in PHP classes site, and it was a very successful initiative because it encouraged a lot of developers to send very interesting components. And they are quite innovative and often very useful because they do things that there were no other components in the site to do that. And the idea now is to start that initiative in the JS classes site. And since we are about to comment on the latest JavaScript objects published in JS classes site, I think it would be important also to mention this new initiative. Well, basically, the JavaScript Innovation Award is not going to start right now because there are not many packages in the site, and since the nomination for being innovative is compared to all the previously published packages, I think if I never leave now, practically all packages will be nominated for being innovative, and in the end, no packages will be distinguished. They will be considered all innovative, and it would not fulfill the purpose of the initiative, which is to distinguish which are the most innovative packages. And so I've actually been talking with the Arturs about this since several months ago, I think, and the Arturs suggested to have some kind of a goal to reach a minimum, and then just show the users of the site a sort of a progress bar, like this one that is being showed on the screen right now, which is in the Innovation Award page on the JS Classes site, which shows how much of the goal has been done and how much is remaining. Arturs had this idea of providing a special prize to the authors that contribute more in this phase, but I was also concerned that many authors start submitting rubbish packages, very simple packages, just to raise in their rankings to be considered for getting this special prize. And so I decided that only those that submit notable packages would be considered for this ranking. So as you may see now on screen, there is this ranking at notable packages that were being submitted so far. So far we only see 3 packages because it was just announced, but it's a good start. Because it is getting a good pace to reach the goal sooner. And anyway, what I have decided is to provide as prize. Well, I thought of providing a prize that would be interesting for JavaScript developers. Well, in the PHP Innovation Award, there is also, besides the monthly award, there is also the annual award that the winner is entitled to get an elephant, a mascot. But in the JavaScript world, I think there is no such mascot. I think somebody needs to create one, but until that happens, I would not be able to replicate the prize itself. So I thought, given that many of the authors that contribute to the JS Classes site are also PHP developers, they would probably be interested in getting a prize which should be an elephant, which is the mascot of PHP. And actually, I'm showing you now on screen. There is a new mascot that, as I mentioned in previous programs, that is being produced, which is more based on the logo of the PHP Classes site, designed by Ifat Hamid, and the current version of the prototype that is being designed is still being adjusted, but it's getting closer to a final version, which look more or less like what you see on screen. And this is one interesting aspect of these sites, the JavaScript JS classes, which also is based on PHP classes initiatives. Arturs, you are sort of a father of the idea of this challenge phase. Do you think this will work well to motivate authors to submit more JavaScript packages so we can get to the goal sooner? What are your expectations also from what you have seen so far from the submitted packages since the award challenge was started?
Well, firstly, well, I'm quite confident that it will attach more users, interest of more users, and motivate them to submit new packages, because, well, we all are users of PHP classes site, and this contest where a lot of PHP class members participate, intentionally or unintentionally submitting innovative packages that they have, and even if someone doesn't know about the contest, once he gets into 1 month's top, well, he will also would want to try more and collect more points, and basically I guess this is what is missing in JS classes side. So this promotion basically will try to motivate those users not to hold on these innovative components and try to submit them now, because, well, this promotion is actually like its own little contest where people can participate, and maybe in some way it's even bigger than a monthly innovation award contest, because it's for the cause for all the JS classes users.
Yeah. Well, we have to wait and see what how the adoption is coming. We can see that since this Innovation Award Challenge phase started, we have already several authors, not just Arturs Sosins submitting his own packages, but other authors, and it is interesting to see them already contributing. I hope this keeps with the pace. Well, if we get like 3 new packages a week, reaching the goal of 67 packages remaining, or I think it will take like 24 weeks or so. So this gives us enough time to reach that goal before the end of the year, which would be great in my opinion. And well, we have to wait and see. I'm quite anxious to see the results of this initiative. Just as a side comment, I would like to mention that there will be other initiatives coming up, hopefully soon. They have to be implemented there, and there needs to be some code to be written to implement them. That will not only engage users on this Innovation Award, but also engage users on activities of sharing their code, so they will get more attention to the good work that they have been sharing in these sites. But we'll get back more on this in the future. Hopefully soon in next shows we'll comment more about on that. But for now we are going to comment on the latest JavaScript classes published in the site. Well, in the recent times, since the last program, where I think there were like 6 new classes. We do not have time to comment on all of them, but I think you can comment on a few. Arturs, do you like to start? Which ones do you think?
Well,
you like to comment? Well, actually, you should start by one of your own.
Yes, I will try. I will even try to run a demonstration. Well, basically, class is called Gravity, which provides a way to apply physics to simple HTML elements. It uses a box2dev library. I guess it was the same library that was used in a Google Gravity project, if someone knows it. And I've simply created a wrapper to show its to allow easy implementation on HTML element. Because I designed it was meant for canvas animations, and actually there are quite few features implemented, just some basics. It could be extended even more if people show interest, but well, I've already received
can
great
you just
comments.
Increase the font? So, okay, it's better now.
Okay.
No, actually I'm seeing my own screen.
Well, I've already received great comments for it, for the idea, so I will even try to advance it more and add more features later. And
Okay.
the second one I'd like to mention that's really useful package it's called CDA Cross Domain Ajax by Hansel Hartmann from Switzerland, and it's useful for including scripts, JavaScript from other domains to your website. Well, basically, it can be used not only if you want to simply include a script from other website, but also if you want to use, for example, REST API with a JSON-P protocol, where it returns some JSON data that could be wrapped in a callback function, and you simply include this REST URL into the head of your website, and it's automatically called. And basically, it's a way to use REST APIs in a JavaScript environment. That's why I think that this package is actually a great one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's true. Basically, despite nowadays there is those standards for defining whether a page would be allowed to send cross-domain AJAX requests. I'm not sure if it is well supported by all browsers, and in that case, an object like this by Ansel will be great to have. Actually, Ansel has even written a blog post about it, but it was not yet reviewed, but should be published by the time this podcast is being published, and you may want to read that later. On my part, I also would like to comment a couple, two very quickly, because we are getting closer to the end of our podcast and still have the PHP classes to comment about. One of the classes is this jQuery PHP, which is basically, well, it is a plugin for jQuery, although most of its functionality is not implemented on jQuery features, so it probably did not really need to be a plugin for jQuery. But what it basically does is to encrypt form values using public key infrastructure, RSA, and this is probably interesting on those cases that you would like to use some browser-side storage to store values that will be used later, but you want to store them securely, and so it uses encryption. And it can also decrypt information and storing those form values in different types of containers, like cookies or local storage or session storage. It provides a means to let you pick the different type of storage container. And I think this object by Jason Griffin from the United States also shows the maturity of the developers that are creating advanced components in JavaScript these days. And also another advanced component is another one from let me try to spell it. Alexei Znaev. Am I pronouncing this name right, Arturs?
Alexei Znaev, but well, yeah, almost.
Okay. My Russian accent is not very good. Well, Alexei submitted several other packages. This is yet another one which does also something that is not very trivial, which is basically to compress and decompress data with the LZF algorithm. And this is basically compression routines that can be applied more efficiently on text. And the point here that concerns PHP developers is the fact that it uses functions that have the same names of other functions that exist on PHP, like LZF compress and LZF decompress. So if you need some compression components, I think you can use this component by Alexei. And now moving on with the podcast, we going to talk now about the PHP Programming Innovation Award that we talk about every month. In this case, these are the nominees of March. So they were voting in April, so now we are in May and are commenting about them. Arturs, would you like to comment? Which ones do you think will be the most relevant?
Well, yeah, I would like to comment on two of them. Well, the first one is a winner of Innovation Award. It's a class by Mohamed Reza Kavossi, how pronouncing it right, from Iran. Basically what he did, he created a sort of a template engine, but well, basically what it does, it does not look for some definitions of values inside the template, but it uses I saw there was an example, for example, there was an example of a form where you can define values to fill a form, and well, it automatically detects them and then fills them, which is a kind of innovative approach, despite that other templates uses some kind of string marks where values should appear. Well, that's why probably he's a winner. And another package I'd like to mention is HAAR PHP, which basically face recognition detection package in PHP. Well, how could you say no to a face detection? It, as I understood, it uses OpenCV, some kind of OpenCV data generated by this library, and applies it here in this PHP class to detect faces from the photos. Well, I guess that's really advanced thing to do, and you need to do it efficiently, and I guess that unknown author Fu123 from Greece, well done this job pretty great.
Yeah, since I had to contact him to give away his prize, I realized his actual name is Nikos, but for some reason he prefers to use an alias in the site. Although I always recommend people to use their real names because it gives more credibility, but that does not matter. Does not influence the fact that this package is quite advanced. Actually, he also submitted a similar package to the JS Classes site that does basically the same, but in JavaScript. And this is quite useful, as we have seen on several sites like Flickr and
even in
Facebook.
Google Hangout.
Right, even Google Hangouts uses some face recognition features to detect where are the actual faces of the people on screen, and then apply some some effects, like for instance, start putting um, on people's faces, like you can see now. And but this is just an entertaining application. In real, as a more serious application, it is often used by sites like I mentioned, Facebook and Flickr, to detect where are people's faces, so you can name the person that appears on pictures. And this is quite interesting, and kudos for Nikos for sending this class. I hope you can keep sending more advanced classes like this, because this is not only innovative, it's also very advanced, and this certainly enriches a site like this, and makes everybody enjoy it more. And on my part, I would also like to comment on a couple of classes actually, and one of them is this data pivot package sent by let me try to Andri Zulfikar from Indonesia. I don't know if that's the right way to pronounce it. We never know. I'm sure we always spell it wrong, but okay, at least we try. I hope people can excuse us for not pronouncing their names correctly. But back to the actual class, what it does is very common functionality that is necessary to produce some so-called pivot tables. They are commonly used on spreadsheet applications, and in this case, Andri managed to generate pivot tables and show them from data retrieved from MySQL databases. So it not only shows the data, but also can show summary fields like totals and other grouping functions. And although this is quite common, having this bundled in a package that does it directly just from a few inputs, and the class figures all that out, it's quite innovative and useful to other people. Another class that I also like to comment is this file info from Uku Karel Joesser. Maybe Arturs can spell it this better, because it's from a neighbor country, right?
Well, the language is pretty different. I doubted I could spell it better than you, but it could be something like Uku Karel Joesser.
Okay. So I figure if I was wrong, you are wrong too, so it's all right. Anyway, the Uku Karel has been a regular contributor for quite a while, and his package, its packages were nominated like 5 times, and this is yet another one of the nominations that he got. Basically, what this class does, file info, is a way to detect the type of files that you can perform by looking to some, probably the initial bytes of the files. And this is not exactly new in the sense that there is an extension in PHP that does precisely this, and this class tries to emulate its functionality. What is new in this package is that it is all implemented in PHP. So if the file info extension is present, it will call its functions. If it is not present, it tries to emulate the same functionality with several other methods. and still provide a solution to users that do not, for some reason, cannot use that file info extension. And for that reason, that is why this package is innovative and useful. And kudos to Uka Karel from Estonia for this contribution as well. Well, with this, I think we basically conclude this podcast. Arturs, I don't know if you have your final words to conclude.
Yeah, well, I'd only like to again mention and motivate all PHP classes users to try to submit their packages to JS classes and finally bring the Innovation Awards also to JS classes.
Yeah, I think that will work great, and I also like to thank you for sharing your ideas. Although the idea itself is simple, somebody has to have it and suggest it. And this also is a reminder to other users of the site that would like to see it improved somehow. Not just the JS classes site as we are mentioning, but also the PHP classes site, because both sites share the same code base. And I would like to encourage everybody that has ideas for things that can be improved to go ahead. So contact the site. There is a link on the bottom of all pages to contact the site and send your ideas if you want to send them privately, or you can also post a comment to an article of the podcast of the site blog, like the one of this podcast, to comment, send your ideas, and other than that, also use that comment sections to comment on other topics that we've commented on this podcast. So on my behalf, I would just like to say that is all for now. So thank you for your participation, and see you next show. Bye.
Bye all.